honestly one of the things that I'll whip out at parties. They're usually looking at exercise as a way to burn calories. And that is one, the losing strategy, period. It's probably not what you expect. Hello, everyone. Allie Virtue here from the Pre-Diet Podcast, a functional medicine nutritionist and the owner of Parkside Nutrition. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is going to be a short one. So if you're listening to this on your commute to work, maybe on a walk, I would love it if you were listening to this on a walk. That's actually how I originally wanted to get this started. I wanted to make these podcasts as short and easily digestible, so you can simply listen to them on a walk when you had time. Because even a 5-minute walk, 7-minute walk has impact, and I feel like I always feel better afterwards. I've never regretted going for a walk. So the other purpose of this podcast is simply to educate you. The more information you have, the more usually reason you have to make these changes if you realize why some of these changes can be so impactful to your life. And usually if you feel better, that's also how we actually build momentum as well. So, all right, let's get into it. So today is a little bit shorter. I wanted to talk about, honestly, one of the things that I'll whip out at parties. And you might think, my God, how big of a nerd are you? Turns out pretty big of a nerd, but I have, and it's been well received, and to the point where I'm surprised that this keeps coming up. But anyway, I really want to turn what you think about exercise on its head. So please, please, please keep listening to this. Watch this on YouTube if you are listening to this, because the visuals are so powerful. And again, it gets you thinking about things in a different way. And if we can think about things differently, we're probably going to act differently. We're going to talk differently. Things get easier. Everybody's looking for motivation, accountability. How do I be more disciplined? It's easier to do that stuff if you know why you're doing it and if you have a big enough reason to change. Maybe you aren't really being successful because you don't think you have a big enough reason, or the reason that you should be working out or should be eating more healthily, it's not that important to you. And that's fine. We can probably find other reasons. So that is changeable, is the good news. So I'm going to share my screen because I want to talk about how your body burns calories. It's probably not what you expect. Excellent. All right. So this is one of the slides that I use in many of my presentations, but how does my body burn calories? I initially said, I want to talk to you about exercise because everybody will tend to start with exercise when it comes to a health endeavor, which is absolutely fantastic, but they're usually looking at exercise as a way to burn calories. And that is one, the losing strategy, period, but also probably just is coming from lacking of education. And it's a really simple fix. If we really learn this basic, honestly, if you just memorize this slide and know what these things mean, you're good to go for a really long time. This graphic here, and I'll try to describe it as well, but it is 100% of your total daily energy expenditure. So all the calories that your body burns in a day. And there's broken up into categories, and we'll talk about those. So the biggest part of this 100% graphic here is 70% is basic metabolic rate. So just you being alive, laying on a bed, that's it. Not doing any activity whatsoever, just you being alive, breathing, etc. The next biggest chunk is NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is about 15%. So this is you walking your dog, gardening, doing your chores, daily life. Very much lifestyle. This is not you working out. The next biggest chunk is about 10%. It's the thermic effect of food. So that means just the cost, calorie-wise, for your body to run your digestive system. That's at about 10% of your energy per day. And then the last little piece is about 5%, and it's exercise activity thermogenesis. And that is your workout. So quite backwards if we were to think about this. So the smallest little part of your energy burn for the day is coming from exercise. And like I said, most people start with that. They rely so heavily on exercise. And I would love to literally flip the script about how you should be thinking about this. Because if I love food, which I do, massive foodie, I don't really want to count my calories forever. I don't track my food right now. And I've maintained the lowest weight that I've been in my adult life and probably happiest, very happy and comfortable. Would love to be more jacked just to be strong because being strong is fun. Would love that, but also just very happy with where I'm at. And not too many people really celebrate the art of really maintaining. It's all about the weight loss, or you're born with it, it's natural, etc. It does take work, but I feel like I've built a lot of habits that have kept me in a really happy place. And more so than weight, it's kept me at a really, this physique or body composition to maintain hasn't been overly high maintenance. I don't think. I'm not burned out about really trying to keep my weight here, my body composition here the way it is. And that's how I generally feel good. I feel lighter. I feel agile. I feel athletic. I feel like I like the way that my clothes fit, etc. So like I also want to emphasize that not just the weight portion or the body composition portion. It's nice when your body is feeling like it's functioning really well. So keep that in mind as well, because that is a big motivator when we're trying to pursue change or trying to pursue feeling better. That's important too. So if I do like food and I don't want to nickel and dime myself, so we want to have a very sustainable lifestyle that maintains a body composition that you really like, you're happy with, you feel healthy, etc., we need to optimize this graph, this how our body burns calories. We need that to be it needs to match our lifestyle. So if you are the type that really doesn't want to bother with food, you're fine with, sticking to a very regimented kind of dietary routine, maybe this doesn't apply to you as much. But if you're like me, you like food, you don't want to have to count calories or keep going through cut cycles, things like that. To me, I think about this as I want to be like a diesel truck. And that might sound absolutely ridiculous. And hopefully, this makes it more memorable and sticky in your brain because I want to be like the diesel truck version of humans. I want to be expensive as far as calories. And yeah, sure, that could get annoying having to eat all the time, but I want to be able to eat food and consume energy and need a lot of energy. So it makes it more fun. Versus if I was a Prius, I would not need very much fuel. And this happens as we get older. Our bodies can kind of get more efficient when it comes to calories. And if you think kind of from an evolutionary perspective, if we have an aging population in our tribe, we probably don't want them to hog all the food because they're probably not helping us hunt it, right? So I am more willing to probably give a lot of food resources and resources in general to the younger, stronger population of our tribe that is going to get the food. Does that make sense? And versus like if you're an elder, you one probably don't have as much muscle mass because that tends to go down over time. You're probably not quite as active as far as again hunting our food. So I'm not going to require as much energy. So if we think about it from that, I think that is helpful. So we don't just get mad at the way that our bodies age and function and things like that because there's probably a purpose. So I'll try to get off that soapbox. But anyway, so if I'm wanting to be a diesel truck and be very sturdy and be very strong going into my older years, I need to maximize this, call it equation or how this works. So if I want to attack this 100% equation, I should probably want to look at the biggest chunk. How do I impact the biggest category on this graph? Well, that is BMR, basal metabolic rate. And it's like, wait, Allie, you said that this is me laying on a bed flat, not doing anything. How does that work? How do we make that more expensive? I can't do anything about it. Well, if you think of someone who is 7 feet tall, I, for reference, am 5'5", someone that is 7 feet tall has a much higher BMR than me. They are very much more expensive to run than I am, even if we're both just laying down. So I can't grow taller, but I can add muscle mass. And muscle mass is probably the most expensive tissue that we can put on our body and add, right? So if you were to think of me adding a weight vest, say 10 pounds of muscle, adding 10 pounds of muscle to my frame, that's going to make me more expensive and it's going to make my BMR or base metabolic rate go up. So that 70%, the actual number of it, we're talking percentages, but that actual number of how many calories I would need to just survive and lay around is higher. So if I work hard to increase that, that's really, really helpful. So that's that part of the equation. If I move on to the next part, that's NEAT. So 15% of this equation is NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So we're still not talking about the gym, but my movement. So if I create a healthy, active lifestyle, I have a farm, so taking care of my horses naturally does take a couple extra steps, as you can imagine. I have dogs, so that creates some activity there. I got to take them for walks. And then we have a gym routine, but we could say that's extra. That's our exercise. And then me and my husband also have a really strong habit, and my mom, of going for walks most nights in the evening. I think it's a great quality of life thing, mental health wise. Sometimes when it comes to exercise, we're not always able to exercise, whether we're sick, whether we're injured, whether life is just too busy, whatever comes up. So I'm a big, big fan of adding in walking as a habit, just so it is quickly moved up the list of things to do or options that we have available to us. Because I just can't tell you how helpful walking is as a habit. And when you look at research for like long-term weight loss, the people that have an active lifestyle is a huge, huge, huge indicator in if they will maintain their weight loss. And this is what I've seen in 8+ years of experience with working with people. If they don't take on that kind of identity of like, I go for a walk, I'm a person that goes for a walk on a regular basis, a lot of the times their success with weight loss or weight management is going to be very temporary because they're not really ingraining that habit into what they just naturally do all the time. So to be honest, not encouraging to buy animals that you don't want, but animals are a really powerful motivator. You could also use your kids as well. If you have kids or grandkids, young kids that you want to keep up with, like you need to be agile, you need to be mobile, you need to be able to go for a walk with them or just be active or things like that. So whatever motivates you to keep moving, I would work hard, do some journaling and figure that out. For me, horses are we have them at home, so we have to be able to function around them. And they're big animals, potentially dangerous animals. So I am very motivated to feel very strong around them. I think that's a safety thing as well. Just kind of a fact of life. But so that 15%, creating an active lifestyle for yourself. So think about how you would like to build that, whether that's pickleball with a friend, going for walks, you hike on the weekend, go for a dog walk, etc. But how would you like to build in regular activity into your lifestyle? The next one is thermic effective food. So TEF. This is your digestive system, and you might be thinking, how on earth do I tell my digestive system to work harder or burn more calories? Well, the food, the macronutrient, we have three macronutrients, right? We have protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Those are the three categories that are in our food that we actually get calories from. So, of those three, one of them burns more energy than others. Protein, when we digest protein, it takes a little bit more energy to digest it. So if I have 100 calories of pure protein going into my body, I'm not actually going to absorb all of that. I'll absorb it, but I'm going to use a little bit of my own calories to digest it. So there's a little bit net loss with that. So with that being said, what do I want to do about that? I probably want to have a higher protein diet. And the good news is a lot of people are under eating on protein, under eating on fiber. And if I increase my fiber, increase my protein, I usually get more full, and that allows me to lower my calories. So if you are someone who's pursuing fat loss and needs to be in a calorie deficit, maybe you find dieting in the traditional sense very stressful, odds are we might not have put our protein up high enough or figure out a schedule of or kind of meals that we'd like to eat on a regular basis that allows us to not be hungry, allows us to be in a mild calorie deficit, and also allows us to do the activity that we need to. I think a lot of people don't balance all of those factors, and those are a lot of factors. That's why professionals are very helpful for looking at it objectively. We look at your lifestyle, we look at what you want to achieve as far as body composition and things like that. So those are a lot of factors to balance for sure. But quite often people aren't eating enough protein, and that's one way we can kind of maximize. And this is potentially also what people say when they say, I'm not eating enough to lose weight. I'm not eating enough. I'm eating too little to lose weight. It's not usually the case. They're usually overeating. They're usually consuming more calories than they think. They're usually not eating enough protein because protein is very filling. And because they're not eating a lot of protein, they quite often snack a lot. And a lot of snack foods are carbohydrate based. And low protein plus lots of carbs usually makes you really hungry, or vice versa, hard to feel full. So that's how that can kind of shift a little bit. But all of that to say, if we increase our protein, we also maximize this part of the equation as well. Again, it's 10%, not the biggest chunk, but bigger than exercise. And so exercise, our last little chunk, 5% of this whole total daily energy expenditure is exercise. And so again, I said it's the smallest one. We still want to maximize it, but I want to choose exercise, or at least curate an exercise routine that maximizes everything else on our screen here to really make it work the most efficient way possible so I can be that diesel truck. And the way that is resistance training, lifting weights, doing some sort of exercise that builds muscle and builds muscle mass, not just strength. It's one thing to get stronger, but we want to add literal tissue, muscle tissue onto our frame. And honestly, there are so many ways to get fit, to exercise, and I love that. But I would definitely encourage you to work with a personal trainer or download a program that says it is a hypertrophy program. And this is designed to build muscle. Like I said, it should probably include some weightlifting. Bands are one way to create some resistance training, but usually lifting weights is better. There's just more benefits associated with them as far as like balance, stability, things like that. And this should help feed back into the whole system. So if I have my exercise that includes resistance training, if you like to do endurance stuff, that's fine too. But like lifting 2 to 3 times a week minimum would be good so we can actively build muscle. If you've been lifting for a while or have been working out, you're kind of conditioned to lifting, you may want to try a different program or test your 1 rep maxes and kind of readjust your like percentages as far as whether it's a 5 rep max or 1 rep max, etc. Work with a personal trainer that can kind of assess you and then build a program to help you do that. Because if you've been doing it for a really long time, you're probably pretty adapted to the routine that you're doing, especially if you've been doing that routine for quite a while. So highly recommend downloading a hypertrophy program. You can reach out via email if you want questions on some of the ones that I really like. And yeah, so exercise, you can kind of think about exercise instead of thinking about it as burning calories. Just we've hopefully established that it's not really what we want it to do for us. It burns a little calories, but there's a time domain element to it, right? There's only so many calories we can burn in an hour. I would love for you to think of exercise as a deposit or an investment in your future. And so when we think about this particular graphic here, I want my exercise to be a deposit into my BMR, future BMR. So I want this exercise to hopefully add some more muscle mass to my frame. So future Allie has a higher BMR, has a higher burn just from living, right? And then hopefully I'm pairing that with a high protein diet and a generally active lifestyle. That is going to be a continual investment going forward. That system, just like your financial habits, right? Hopefully builds wealth for you in the future. Hopefully you save for retirement. Same kind of thing. If we think about our exercise, that's kind of like saving or putting money aside for your retirement. If I'm making the effort to make a deposit on my time, so taking my time to exercise and build muscle, taking my time to meal prep and make sure I have protein available right now, that's going to help me build muscle now and in the future. And then I have those habits established. So I'm going to hopefully put off osteopenia, muscle wasting in the future because I have this system in place. My lifestyle, my habits are in place to really maximize this. So when I get to, 60, 70 years old, I don't have to really cut calories down super low because I don't have that much muscle. I don't have a very active lifestyle. All of this stuff is foreign to me. It's really hard to do that at that stage of life. It's not impossible by any means, but I do see a lot of women just very surprised at the amount of calories they have to eat to see weight loss. It's not a lot if we don't have a lot of muscle mass. They're usually quite frail. They don't have a lot to their frame in the way of muscle. And that's really hard. If you've never lifted weights before, that can be very intimidating. There can be a lot of barriers to that. So if we start this early, it just gets so much easier. It is never a bad time to build muscle. And if you learn kind of how this works, it becomes easier. And hopefully you start to let go of the fact of like, oh, I just need to go to the gym to burn calories so I can eat my food today. Please don't think about it that way. You should be thinking, I get to exercise today because I need to age well. I need to be independent for a really long time. I like feeling strong. And so hopefully you know how valuable your time is now for building muscle and how much that's going to help you in the future. Because if we lock into that, if you're aware of that, it's, I think, harder to say no to. You're saying no to like, I don't really need to be independent in my 70s. Like, I'll probably have enough money saved. Like maybe I can get a caregiver or maybe someone can go get my groceries and carry them in for me or whatever it is. Odds are most people that I talk to don't want that type of future. So please make the investment now. Pay for a personal trainer. If you're not comfortable with lifting weights, download a program that is actively helping you stay very functional. I can't emphasize enough how important that is. All right, that's most of my soapbox. Remember, we want to be a big, sturdy, strong diesel truck. I drive a Prius personally, but I don't want to be a Prius. It's nice to be efficient, but I love food and I want to make sure that I can maintain a really healthy relationship with food. And I think that is pretty tough to have a good relationship with food when we are having to really watch it and making sure that we're not eating too much. All right, team, I can't express how much your support and just listening to this podcast means to me. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions or topics that you want covered in the future, please let me know. But thank you so much for being here. Feel free to share this episode with a friend. Encourage them to go for a little walk and talk or walk and listen. Please rate the show on Spotify, leave a 5-star review or comment on this episode. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and hopefully like this episode as well. That helps the show grow as well. I really appreciate any and all support that you have given so far and in the future. But thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.